Democracy doesn't disappear overnight. It doesn't end with huge fights in the streets or leaders tearing up constitutions on live TV. It fades slowly, through small changes most people barely notice. A journalist loses their job. A judge is replaced. Elections start feeling off. At first, life seems normal. People still vote and news still air. But behind the scenes, the rules are shifting. Europe is seen as the stronghold of democracy, but in 2025, that's no longer true for everyone. In some countries, those values are wearing thin, and the warning signs are getting harder to ignore. Today, we're looking at 10 European countries where democracy is fading, and why it matters not just for them, but for all of us. Take a second to like the video and subscribe, so you don't miss more videos like this. 10. Poland. Poland was once held up as a model for post-communist transformation. In the years following the fall of the Iron Curtain, it embraced democratic reforms with real momentum, free elections, and an independent judiciary. For a time, it looked like democracy had truly taken root. But in recent years, that progress has started to unravel. One of the earliest warning signs came with sweeping changes to the judiciary. Judges were forced into early retirement, and many key positions were filled with individuals seen as loyal to the ruling party. The media landscape has also shifted. Public broadcasting, once a neutral source of information, has increasingly taken on a pro-government tone. In smaller towns and rural areas, where alternative outlets are limited, many citizens only hear one side of the story. Yes, elections are still held, but when one party dominates the media and controls much of the political narrative, the playing field is anything but even. A few legal changes here and there, and over time, the democratic system that once empowered citizens starts serving the interests of the few. 9. Moldova. Moldova might not be a place you hear about often, but its story says a lot about what happens when a young democracy struggles to find its footing. This is a country stuck between bigger powers, Europe on one side, Russia on the other. That tug-of-war makes it really hard to build stable institutions. Every election feels like a battle for the country's soul, and because of that, trust in the system is shaky at best. Corruption is a major issue. Over time, it makes regular folks feel like the system's not built for them. The courts often seem like they're serving whoever's in power. Independent journalists face lawsuits or financial pressure. That makes it hard to know who to believe, and easy for disinformation to spread. A lot of people in Moldova are tired. Tired of broken promises, tired of outside interference, and tired of watching leaders change while nothing else really improves. Many young people leave the country altogether, looking for a better life somewhere else. When hope fades, democracy goes with it, and in Moldova, hope is hard to hold on to. 8. Georgia. Georgia is one of those places that seemed like it was heading in the right direction. It had protests, reforms, and a public that really cared about where the country was going. But lately, things have taken a turn, and not for the better. Politics here has become deeply divided. Not just disagreement, but all-out political warfare. It's become so extreme that people don't talk to each other anymore. They shout, accuse, and shut each other out. The ruling party holds a tight grip on power. Critics say the courts are no longer truly independent. When cases go to trial, the outcome often feels like a foregone conclusion. Independent media, once a real strength in Georgia, is now under pressure. Journalists are being sued, harassed, and sometimes attacked. It becomes harder for people to hear different viewpoints, or to trust what they're hearing at all. What's sad is that many Georgians still take to the streets, still try to speak up, but you can feel the exhaustion setting in. When the same fights happen year after year, and nothing really changes, people start to give up. When people stop believing their voice can make a difference, those in power don't need to pretend to listen anymore. 7. Albania. Albania is a country with big dreams and a long, difficult road behind it. The people there have lived through dictatorship, isolation, and chaos. So when democracy started to grow, there was real hope. But that hope is now fading. One of the biggest challenges is trust, because in Albania, a lot of people just don't trust the system. And honestly, it's not hard to see why. Elections happen, but they're messy. Accusations of vote buying, threats, and pressure on public workers are all too common. The media scene is dominated by a handful of powerful voices. Independent outlets try to do real journalism, but they're often targeted through lawsuits, intimidation, or being shut out of funding. Many Albanians, especially the young, are leaving, not because they don't love their country, but because they've lost faith that things will get better. It's not about one leader or one party. It's about a system that feels stuck. And when people feel like nothing changes no matter how they vote, that's when democracy starts to fade. 6. Turkey. Turkey's story is one of the clearest examples of how a democracy can be taken apart piece by piece without ever fully disappearing. In 2025, it feels like the system is still standing, but the spirit of democracy is gone. The media is almost completely under control. Critical voices are either shut down or forced to self-censor. People still watch the news, but it all sounds the same. When one voice dominates the conversation, truth becomes whatever that voice says it is. The courts are not very independent anymore. Legal decisions often feel like political ones. Opposition figures, journalists, and everyday citizens have faced jail time for things that wouldn't even raise eyebrows in most democracies. Even elections, which still happen regularly, don't feel fair. The ruling party has so many advantages that real competition becomes almost impossible. People are afraid to speak openly, and when fear becomes normal, freedom slips away. What's most troubling is how normal this all feels to many Turks now. It didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, and that's what makes it so dangerous. Because when the system still looks like a democracy, it's easy to forget that the power of the people has quietly been taken away. 5. Montenegro. On the surface, Montenegro holds elections, has institutions in place, and plays by the rules, at least on paper. But look a little closer, and you'll see how power, once concentrated, can quietly warp a democracy from the inside out. For years, one political group ran the country almost without interruption. Even when leadership shifted more recently, the grip on key institutions didn't loosen much. People started to feel like the players change, but the game stays the same. And in a democracy, that's not how it's supposed to work. Political interests deeply influence courts, police, even business decisions. If justice depends on who you are or who you know, everyday people quickly lose confidence in the system. Media freedom is fragile here. Journalists investigating corruption or organized crime often face harassment, or worse. Some outlets have learned to self-censor just to survive. Montenegrins are growing more frustrated, and when that gap grows too wide, something cracks. This is what democratic decline often looks like. Not open collapse, but a slow erosion of public faith, caused by leaders who forget that real democracy means more than just showing up at the ballot box. 4. Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina is a country shaped by its past. A painful, complicated past that still casts a long shadow over its politics today. After the war in the 90s, democracy was supposed to help rebuild and heal. But decades later, the system feels stuck in the very divisions it was meant to overcome. Power in Bosnia is deeply tied to ethnic identity. There are 3 main groups, and the political system is built to give each one a voice. But instead of promoting unity, that structure often encourages division. Politicians rely on fear, blame, and identity politics to hold on to power. And when things do break down, like the economy, the health system, or basic infrastructure, nobody seems able to fix them. Blame gets passed around, and nothing changes. People are frustrated. Many are leaving. They're tired of a system that feels broken by design. In Bosnia, democracy exists, but it's not delivering. It's tangled in history, and losing the trust of the very people it's supposed to serve. Most citizens just want a normal, functioning country. But in a system that's frozen in place, even that feels like too much to ask. 3. Serbia. Serbia is a country that seems like a democracy, with elections, parliaments, public debate. But in reality, it's becoming harder and harder to say those things still function the way they're supposed to. One party has dominated politics here for over a decade, and its leader is everywhere. On TV, in the news, at rallies. He's the face of almost every message. Independent voices in the media are under pressure. Government-friendly outlets dominate the airwaves, and critics are often labeled as enemies or traitors. It creates a culture of fear, where people watch what they say, especially if they work in public jobs. Many citizens feel that justice isn't about right or wrong, but about who has the power. When trust in legal fairness breaks down, people stop turning to the system. They either stay silent or look for workarounds. There's also a growing sense that political loyalty matters more than competence. Promotions, contracts, even jobs sometimes hinge on who you support, not what you know. Serbia hasn't officially turned authoritarian, but it's walking dangerously close to that line. And the worst part? A lot of people feel like they don't have a real choice anymore. 2. Russia. For years now, It's moved far away from democracy, and yet it still calls itself one. But behind the labels and official language, most Russians live under a system where real political choice is almost non-existent. Elections happen, but opposition candidates are often banned, jailed, or forced into exile. Votes are monitored and results are predictable. People go to the polls, but many already know what the outcome will be. Independent media is mostly gone. The state controls the major outlets, and the few remaining independent journalists work under constant threat. Some are branded as foreign agents, others are arrested. Protests are often met with force. People who speak out, whether on the street or online, risk harassment, prison, or worse. Even private conversations can be risky. It's a culture of surveillance, where people learn to stay quiet just to stay safe. What makes it all more disturbing is how normal this has become. There's a sense of resignation, like this is just how things are. And when people stop believing that change is even possible, that's when democracy truly dies. Not because it was voted away, but because it slowly became irrelevant. 1. Hungary. Hungary is perhaps the most striking example of democratic backsliding inside the European Union. It's now become a warning sign of how democracy can erode from within, without any military coups or dramatic takeovers. The same leader has been in power for over a decade. The government controls much of the media, redraws voting districts, and uses public money to promote its message. In that environment, opposition voices don't disappear, they're just drowned out. The press, once diverse and vibrant, is now mostly aligned with the ruling party. Critical journalists are pushed out. Independent outlets struggle to survive. Laws change quickly and usually without much public debate. What's unique about Hungary is that it still looks like a democracy on the surface. Institutions are there. It's what some experts call electoral autocracy, where votes exist, but real power doesn't change hands. And for Hungarians, the question now isn't just about freedom of speech or fair elections. It's about whether the system still belongs to the people or whether it's been taken from them.